Robin Rifkin, based in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania today, and I am a meeting facilitator. I've actually spent most of my career as a nutritionist working in food security, so this is an area that I care and try to really keep abreast about. So welcome to the webinar, or it's not really our meeting. There's a group of us who have been working together for over a year in Philadelphia. Started with a conversation with Pamela Luce, and that Gronick and continued to grow. And it was about addressing the statistics that we were hearing that hunger was actually on the rise in Philadelphia, despite the fact that everywhere else in the country it was really going down. So we've been meeting for a long time, exploring, finding out a lot of other people are working on this. Really got down to, the poverty is a huge piece of this, and of course racial equity is as well. We've had the opportunity to have 2 face-to-face meetings, one in November, and I think the other one was in February. And we're really, I think, well positioned because we're organized to be meeting together and learning together, which we hope this meeting gives us the opportunity to. And the meetings that we've had have been a combination of both people who say they're funders who fund food efforts and food security efforts, and also some of the nonprofits in this field. So this call will only be funders. We do have a couple of guests who are from the nonprofit setting. And we wanted to be able to really hear what was going on the ground from folks around the region. Just before this call, I had a call with Cynthia Figueroa from the City of Philadelphia Office of Children and Families, and I'm going to give a report of what they're doing because she was not able to attend at the last minute. We also have Stu Bush from the also represent the Co-Hunger Network in Montgomery County, and we have Melody Keim, who's with the Coalition Against Hunger in Philadelphia. And Brian Gronick is here, I think, or will be joining us as well, and he's from Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia.
Sorry,
okay, that's okay. Great. So our goal is to hear from these people who are working on the ground or really working to feed people, especially in this very, very concerning time. So let me start by just saying that we have, as I said previously, Kathy Fung from the Philanthropy Network and myself, we had a call with Cynthia Figueroa, the Deputy Mayor of the City of Philadelphia, Office of Children and Family. We had asked Cynthia to speak because she is the coordinator of this huge effort that we continue to hear about in the paper every day about giving out food in Philadelphia. So she gave us this morning. She was called into some critical meetings, so she gave us a report, which I'm going to report back to you, and we'll let Kathy join in with anything that I've missed. So primarily, this is a brand new office with the City of Philadelphia, the Office of Children and Families, and was created in January 6th, and probably before we even knew this was all happening. There has been an ongoing, for many, many years, group that have been working on food relief in Philadelphia. And they decided to partner with Philabundance and with Share Food Program because they are the largest distributors of food in the region. So what they ended up deciding to do was have boxes of food or bags of food given out at sites all across the city. In total, they have 140 sites they're giving food out to. 80 of them are youth sites, and 49 of those 80 are in district schools. 40 are being given out in food pantries that are already established food pantries throughout Philadelphia. The idea was to give out 5 days worth of food for families. uh, those meals are being given out, the ones at these super sites are being given out twice a week, I'm sorry. And each day there are 16,000 boxes of food that are being given out through the city of Philadelphia. This is in addition to other food that Share and Philabundance and other food pantries are distributing throughout Philadelphia right now. So again, 2 distributions at a site per week, and each day they're distributing 16,000 boxes of food, and believe it or not, they're able to do that in 2 hours at 40 different sites. For the youth, what they're giving out is a bag with 6 meals, and it's supposed to be for children and families. And they're being given out at school district sites, and I'm not sure where the other sites are. We didn't actually say where they were. 20 senior centers are also giving out food, and they have to go to one of the senior centers to be able to get that food. At any of these food distribution sites, no ID is necessary, and there is no income qualifications. Lots of times at food pantries, you have to actually show some that you are eligible to receive food. There's information available in multiple languages. They're also trying to figure out ways to get food to the disability community right now. So it's a huge effort in Philadelphia that's being coordinated, and they decided to do it in their own warehouse, which is in Roxborough, in addition to the Philadelphia packing site and distribution site of Philabundance and Share. So I think having the food I asked her about this. They seem to be okay right now financially for food, for monies, but their bigger challenge is being able to get the food. For example, she noted that Philabundance tried to put an order in, and they said it would take 3 to 6 weeks before they could receive this food. So this is a term that's come up a number of times in the last week for me, is the whole supply chain. You may be hearing it in other areas as well. So the other issue, and it was written about in today's paper, is that people, just the general public, are going out to the grocery store and shopping. They're buying more staple foods, and the grocery stores, who typically give to Philabundance and Share, who then give it out to pantries all over the city and even Montgomery County, they don't have the same supply to give away. So there's a shortage of food that way. So I think we're going to hear about that a little bit from some of our speakers today. And it's the types of food that they're actually buying are more of the staples, like beans and rice, and they actually have lots of produce and things like that seem to be available. So that's the report from Cynthia Figueroa. I'm very sorry that she wasn't able to really represent herself and her office directly to us today on the phone, but I was pretty impressed by what they've been able to pull off and organize and get together in this period of time. So let's move on now, and I want to introduce our speakers. If at any point you want to send a question out to any one of our speakers, on the bottom of your chat box, which you'd have to just hit the little chat icon on the bottom of your screen, and a little chat box will pop out to the side. You could send a message at the bottom, and it should say "to everyone," okay? And we hope to have a little bit of time to get to your questions. So first I want to invite Melody Keim from the Coalition Against Hunger to talk to us, and just briefly, Melody, if you could do that. And then we're going to ask Stu too as well, and then Brian, and then we're going to go have a conversation with them. And I have a series of questions that I've already sent them in advance so that they are properly notified and can give some thought to them. So Melody, if you would let us know a little bit about the coalition and what you generally do, and then we'll move on to Stu.
Sure. Well, thank you so
Thanks.
much for having me be part of this conversation. And thanks to all of you for your willingness to hear from us who are working in the field. It's great to know that you're interested in hearing more about what's going on and what we're experiencing. So thank you. The Coalition Against Hunger has been around since 1996, so we've been around for a while. And we have three primary areas where we work. We work to support pantries and soup kitchens across the region, and we do that through a variety of ways. We bring them together so that they can get to know each other, support each other. We provide training and resources to them. We also provide a platform which normally happens this time of the year in April, the Race Against Hunger, which is a way for them to raise dollars to support their program. So we're always looking for ways to enhance our support of them. We also do a food rescue program, which is meant to provide a bit of additional food for them. Help. We had heard that sometimes they run out of food or run a little low on food. So this is a way to help in addition to the food that they get from Fill Abundance and Share and others. We also operate a SNAP hotline, and this is something we've been doing for quite a while. And I really look at it as helping folks navigate the SNAP application process, because it can really be a confusing and challenging process for some folks in particular. We also do some case management with that and make sure that people not only have an application in for SNAP benefits, but also have the food today that they need, hopefully from someplace near to them in their neighborhood. So we do a lot of work, a lot of outreach to help people know that that's a service we offer. We do it by phone so that it's easy for folks who maybe have mobility challenges or have challenges, going out, transportation may be challenging, whatever it may be. We work with language lines, so if they have barriers related to different languages, that we can be able to meet people where they're at, provide them that SNAP navigation that they need. And then the third area where we work is around advocacy. And we do that both on a local, state, but also on a national level. And particularly with now, the situation we find ourselves in, there are a lot of things that are changing. There are a lot of things that we are advocating on behalf of, things that are going to make it easier for folks to access food resources, whether it's Kids for Meals, whether it's SNAP benefits or WIC benefits. So trying to advocate on behalf of the folks who need those services and those resources, but then also helping communicate that to other partners in the area. All the work we do, I would sum it up in 3 words. A lot of the work we do is about connecting, convening, and really communication. And that's what we try to do so that people, of course, have the food that they need.
Thanks, Melody. Great. And I want to invite Stu Bush on now. Stu is with the Open Link, but he's going to be talking about the MON, which is the Montco Anti-Hunger Network. So Stu, take it away.
Yes, thanks, Robin, and thanks to the network for supporting this this effort. The Montgomery County Anti-Hunger Network started in 2014. And since then, we've worked on a number of issues, not only building a network of some 40 plus now pantries and soup kitchens across Montgomery County, but also working with a group of key food organizations, Fill Abundance, Montco Hunger Solutions, and Montgomery County itself. And we currently have 2 full-time employees, our administrator, Paula Schaefer, and we have a full-time driver that runs the van that refrigerated van we use to run our food rescue program. So just to tell you, and a lot of people think, well, Montgomery County, it's a rich county, and it indeed is a rich county, but it also has a lot of poverty. Roughly 80,000 folks in Montgomery County are considered to be food insecure. And the pantries that we support through the network serve approximately 15,000 households each year. So one of the larger programs that we run is our retail food rescue program, and that's in collaboration with Philabundance and a number of other distributors, including their Grocers Against Hunger program, some of the grocery stores in there, but also some other independent folks outside of the Grocers Against Hunger program. And last year in 2019 was our first full year of running the program, and we were able to move 243,000 pounds between food pantries. We also have peer learning circles where we share best practices, and we have an expanding network. We currently have, as I said earlier, 40 plus food pantries and soup kitchens in 5 regions across the county. And we also are involved with some innovation. So we recently were participants with HealthSpark Foundation's Innovation Lab grant. And using that, we are using an online ordering approach to push more food out into the communities, both at senior locations, at the low-income housing locations, as well as more and more with some of our schools, getting some of the families in some of the schools better served. So that's a starting point anyways. Thanks, Robin.
I am. Great. For those of you who didn't get a chance to answer the poll, there's a poll question there. So just get to that. And if everybody makes sure they're on mute, that would be wonderful too. Great. And now I would like to ask Brian Gronick from Jewish Federation to give us a little bit background. And I think Brian is going to be focusing a little bit more about their work with Jewish Federation and seniors. Brian.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks for making me feel underdressed, Stu. Jewish Federation, so we're mostly a grant-making organization. You can sort of think of us synonymous to sort of like a Jewish United Way or Archdiocese. So we're mostly granting out to other social service agencies in the region. We make several large grants to the Klein Life Agency, is a senior community center. East, we really help give a $700,000 grant that really helps subsidize their senior community centers. The main one is based in the upper Northeast by Red Lion and the Boulevard. It's sort of a very typical senior center, and they also have some satellite programs at Center City at 2100 Arch Street at our office building, and in Elkins Park as well. We also fund the RSVP program at Klein Life, the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, as well as Meals program separate from PCA and sort of like Aid for Friends, sort of their own Meals on Wheels program that is largely populated in terms of volunteers by different synagogues where there's about 30 or 40 synagogue groups that cook meals and then deliver them to Klein, and then they get distributed throughout. We also support congregate meals at an organization called Federation Housing, which is Section 8 and tax credit low income and affordable housing for older adults. We're also partnering with a handful of other hunger relief agencies like the Jewish Relief Agency, which provides sort of a monthly box of shelf-stable food to about 6,000 individuals, in which about 500 volunteers, or it used to be 500 volunteers, would congregate in a warehouse in the upper Northeast and then deliver those boxes one Sunday a month. But in addition to all of the agencies we partner with and grant out to, we run 5 food pantries directly ourselves out of my department. Some of you may know Deirdre Mulligan, who oversees all of that wonderful work. Those 5 food pantries Our sort of super pantry is co-located at the Klein Life Building in Northeast Philadelphia, and serves, what that community looks like, which is, a growing new American population, a large amount of individuals who were born in the former Soviet Union, and that serves a large Haitian population living in, I guess, the Longcrest area of Philadelphia, of North Philadelphia. And then pantries in Center City, Lower Bucks, and the main line as well. So looking at a host of different types of sort of socialization programs as well as anti-hunger programs, and then doing a lot of funding of various care management programs too.
Great. Okay, thanks so much, Brian. So I'm going to ask a question of each of you, and I'm going to start with Stu. What are you hearing and seeing on the ground in terms of demand, who needs help, and the availability of food?
Well, I think across the network, we're seeing an increase in demand as people are losing jobs, and also as the kids are at home. Free or reduced lunch is not as available. Some school districts are running some pretty good programs out there, but it's uneven. And so in our food pantry at the Open Link, we saw about a 40% increase March 2020 over 2019, and that was only part of the month, right? So we're expecting an even larger increase. I know that the Catholic Social Services in Norristown has seen as much as a 200% increase on some days, where they've really had to scramble to figure out how to serve that many more folks. So that's definitely a part of it. Yeah, in terms of availability of food, things have shifted, right? Because we're not getting as much food donated as in kind, and we actually would rather have cash so that we can go ahead and buy food. That's certainly what our food pantry is doing. MON itself has actually been raising money, and we have some $30,000 raised to give out to the pantries that are members. And we've, for example, have already given some of that to Catholic Social Services. But one of the issues is the supply chain, as Robin was mentioning earlier. And many of us are running into longer times to get food through the wholesalers that we work with than we had previously experienced. So buying food is not a panacea by any means.
Thanks, Stu. Melody, do you want to talk about that? Maybe talk about how it's affecting maybe the pantries and the changes you're seeing with that and with the hotline, please.
Sure. So, echo a lot of the things that Stu said. We're hearing similar kinds of things. I know with our pantries, part of what they're struggling with is the need is certainly increasing. There are more people who are needing their services. But many of the leaders of the pantries themselves are in that vulnerable population, whether in their 80s and some of them in their 90s. And so they're really struggling with how to create access to food, but also be safe about how they do that. So that's one of the, I guess that's getting into a challenge, but it's part of what we're hearing on the ground. I think the other thing is we're hearing from pantries that they're really looking at ways to deliver food. And there are a number of pantries who have been doing this and continue to do this. But then there are some who are trying to figure out, how can they deliver food to people in their homes, because we know that, access is hard. And, if you have somebody in your household who is ill, if you're in that more vulnerable group, if you have a disability of some shape or form, whatever it may be, even though it's great, there are places you can go and access food, you may not be able to do that. That's where I think there's a lot of need, and we need to really pay attention to kind of that group of people. In terms of our SNAP hotline, we're certainly seeing an increase in the number of people as people are getting laid off, they're losing their jobs. Folks who maybe haven't ever had to apply for food stamps before. So this is a new process. It's a new system for them. They're trying to understand it. There are changes that are happening to the program. And so, this becomes a really important lifeline for them as well. The one other thing I would just say with this, and that is that the anxiety of people is high. And I hear this from our SNAP hotline crew all the time. They are on the phone with people much longer than usual. It can be 45 minutes for an individual call because people are just so scared and they're anxious and they have questions, and a lot of questions that we frankly can't answer for them. And so we're trying to refer them to other groups, to other resources as much as we can. But people are, just really, really unsure about, what's going to happen. And food is an important part of that. But I think that's not the only piece as we're thinking about providing food and access to food for people that we have to think about, because it's woven together with a lot of this anxiety that we're hearing and seeing as well.
Thanks, Melody. And Brian, are you noticing any changes or hearing things on the ground that you want to share with us?
Sure, I would echo that, our volunteer base has changed dramatically in a short time. Our operations have all changed. We used to, all of our pantries were choice pantries. Now we're greeting people and giving them prepackaged bags outside of the pantry so no one comes into the pantry, in terms of making sure that our clients and our staff are safe. A little disturbing is that our largest pantry, the one at the Klein Life Senior Center, has seen a decrease of clients. And we think that's in part because the Klein Life Senior Center is closed, because some of our older adults who relied on paratransit have mobility challenges. And to echo the fear, we fear that people are afraid to come out even to the pantry. And as a result, we're really trying to beef up our volunteer delivery. 5 have long provided home delivered groceries, and we are really trying to rev up the capacity to provide more home delivered groceries. Of course, we haven't added any significant volunteer coordinators yet. We made one part-time person full-time, but it's a juggling of demand of both clients at other pantries and a real demand for volunteers, which we're encouraged by. But all of that sort of takes time to rev up. We can't sort of turn on a dime and start feeding all these additional people when we need to deliver these items, as opposed to just being able to have them come to our pantry and just kick out more food too. And then, to echo the logistics, we haven't noticed yet any supply chain changes, although we're seeing changes in when our food was coming, and the delivery of that product from some of our partner agencies is causing us to juggle schedules a little bit more than we used to too.
Great. I also want to share two comments that Cynthia shared with me that I didn't share with you earlier. And one is that part of the city effort is that they are working with PCA to get food delivered to seniors, but that they really have a shortage of drivers and delivery vehicles to do that. So that was one of the things.
Robin, if I just may add that, many of the programs we support and run directly would go, into the homes of an individual and go into the refrigerator, and whether or not it was putting the frozen meals away, but they would be sort of, eyes and ears and sort of an extension of that care manager or that social worker. And obviously, I think almost all food programs that are doing delivery are now knocking and dropping that food off and then leaving. And I'm worried, even, for an older adult to bend down to the ground and pick up that can of soup, just bending down to the ground is, something, we can't take forgotten. So just, the logistics of getting food from your doorstep into your refrigerator can be challenging for older adults.
Great, thanks. Another thing that Cynthia shared with us is that some of the pantries are reporting that even though the city's giving away a certain amount of food, that Share and Fill Abundance are starting to feel some shortages as well. And I think this goes back to or the supply chain issue rather than finances. What are some of the difficult questions that your collaborations are all dealing with related to COVID and distributing food.
Well, I'd like to echo some of the things that have already been mentioned in some ways, and that is the safety of staff, of volunteers, and of course of the recipients. And it's really an ongoing challenge. And I think we have both in our agency both the Meals on Wheels and a food pantry, and both of them demand different considerations, as Brian was pointing to earlier. But one of the things is that the guidelines keep changing, and so we've had to be nimble on our feet and change with those things. We've lost some people appropriately. So, for example, one woman who was a very robust volunteer happened to be 80 years old that was working with us and is now temporarily retired from service with us, which we all agreed was a good thing, not because we wanted to do something at home. But fortunately, most of what I've heard is that a lot of the volunteers have been able to stick with it, but certainly the fear's out there, and there's a real concern about exposing oneself to these dangers. So I would say safety is probably one of our largest concerns for sure.
I think one of the other things that we're hearing is, a lot of the pantries and kitchens we work with are located in a church or a synagogue or a mosque, and many of those are closed as well. And so then it becomes a challenge also of thinking about, well, how do you still do food delivery when the site that you normally use is not available? So there's kind of been a need for a lot of creative thinking while balancing the safety issues that we've talked about as well. So, it's a little bit of a capacity question, it's a logistics question, and it's also a safety question that we've been hearing a lot about.
Thanks. Brian, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, clearly physical safety is something that, I've been worried about, early on. I'm sure we're seeing in the news that grocery store workers are starting to pass away from COVID. Really quite scary stuff. But the other thing I want to mention, my wife is a physician assistant at a Center City Hospital. That's not what I want to mention, but her boss told her that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I'm, mindful that my direct service staff, I'm sure all of us know, our food pantry staff, we're stretched and running around pretty significantly pre-COVID. And if this lasts, to Memorial Day or hopefully not Labor Day, what is the emotional toll that this is going to take on our staff, whether or not you're, in direct food service or you're a care manager talking to people. I'm, quite concerned about burnout, on the prep call that, Robin and I, some of us had, some of the things we're thinking about is, should we hire a therapist on retainer and make that person available to care managers and direct service staff to be able to sort of get some emotional health and wellness from the extreme stress that they're facing. And the other thing, at 5:30, I'm on the phone with my boss and our HR director to talk about hazard pay for our food pantry staff as well. And, what is, incumbent upon us in terms of compensating the staff for, essentially being in harm's way for this population and just being outside and exposed. I tell the rest of our organization at Jewish Federation that I view our food pantry staff as sort of second responders in this crisis. They're not, in the hospital like an ER doctor or someone, but they're very much, on the front lines of this battle as much as a grocery store worker, if not even more, given the general sort of lack of health and wellness that our client population is already dealing with, and the various comorbidities that they may be carrying or have.
So how is everybody kind of supporting their staff, both their stress levels and to prevent burnout? I know these organizations have been working at the max for a very long time.
Yeah, it's something that I think all of the agencies represented by MON are thinking hard about and trying to work on. I think some of the simple things that we're doing on our staff is that we send around emails to each other with encouraging thoughts. And then, we're continuing to have meetings via Zoom often where we'll, make sure that we listen to each other. I mean, that's so critical, is to let people talk about where they are. And so that's one of the ways that our senior staff really listen about the concerns. And I know that's true with the Anti-Hunger Network. We have a driver who's very much on the front lines in the sense that Brian was speaking about, who's making pickups, deliveries from multiple stores to multiple food pantries every day. And he naturally is very concerned. And so I actually went out with him for a couple of hours one day and just observed him and gave him some thoughts about how he could increase his safety, and then just listen to his concerns. I think that's one of the keys, as always, right? I mean, it's kind of a basic tenet, and it's easy to forget about in these difficult times, that we just have to listen to each other and take a deep breath and be kind. And so that's one of the things I think we're all trying to emphasize in the network.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. I echo so much of what I've heard. One of the things I know we have coming up later this week is we're setting up wellness calls with our pantry and soup kitchen partners. Again, in much the way that we're doing that internally, trying to reach out to our partners in the community to touch base and find a way for us to all kind of share what's going on, how we're feeling about things, what are the stressors, that kind of thing. Touching base with them, also using Zoom internally. And I feel like I have, in some ways, become a coach because I'm spending a lot of my days very intentionally reaching out individually, reaching out as a group, reaching out to see how folks are doing, what their stress levels are like. I'm doing a lot of encouraging, going outside and taking walks, doing things that one of the benefits of working from home and working remotely is that you have some things available to you, but you have to step away from the screens and the phones to go and kind of rejuvenate and catch your breath. So we continue to look for ways to do that. On a call today, we were joking about, we always have a monthly potluck, and we were joking about having a Zoom potluck to kind of fill the gap
Yeah,
of
exactly.
seeing each other in person. But it's a really important piece of this. I think who are on the front lines, they take on the stories and the trauma that the folks we're working with experience. And it's always hard to think about what do you do with that? How do you let off the steam and the stress from that? And this is really kind of piling on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really important part of the work that we're doing right now.
Thank you. So what's a need that your organization faces that might surprise some of the people on this call?
I think one needs to know that isn't very surprising, but I have to say it out loud, which is technology. As nonprofits, we're not usually, totally up to date with our systems and our technology. And so working remotely, working differently, creating a new normal is really dependent on our systems and our technology. And so that is something that we continue to try to figure out how we can do this better so that we can better serve the folks we're working with. Another one which may be surprising is mail. So because we're working remotely, we had to forward our mail. Mail is running very, very slow right now. And so when you forward mail, it's even compounding that. So most of our bills and things are online, but there are some that aren't. And there are some donations and checks and things that we're waiting on that are coming through the mail, and simply we have not received it yet. So that has been a challenge. So we're trying to really move things out of kind of that hands-on, old way of doing things, kind of to more direct deposits and bill pay online, that kind of thing. So those are two particular things for us.
Great. Anybody else?
Well, there's a fair amount of mundane things out there that you wouldn't think would be a problem, but are these days, like Clorox wipes and hand sanitizer and gloves and masks. Fortunately, with masks, a lot of good-hearted people are making masks for us, so that's a big plus. But it's crazy how just some of the basic things of the world are just not accessible right now. And so unfortunately, we're getting enough at this point, but there's a concern for, over a couple of months, will we be able to sustain that?
Brian?
No, I would just echo technology and IT is a real need that we're seeing sort of across the social service agencies, not just the food specific ones.
Melody, I have a question for you, and that is, I know the Walk Race Against Hunger is generally a big money fundraiser for pantries.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how some of the pantries get money to do whatever they need to do, buy shelving or whatever it is they need to do throughout the year. But that probably has a lot of the pantry folks are consumed with just getting food out. So that I don't know if it's a question, but I'm just assuming that they're not focusing on trying to raise money for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we have a call with them coming up on Monday, and we'll have a better sense of kind of where they're at. But often a lot of their fundraising happens during church, during service, during the gatherings, and those gatherings aren't happening anymore either. So it is a challenging thing for them. We did not cancel the race because we knew that they really depend on this platform to be able to raise dollars to support their program. But we've made it a virtual event, and we are continuing to talk to them about what does it mean given current state of affairs, where they have to focus their attention now versus fundraising. And so we may extend it, I don't know where we'll land with it, but we're trying to listen to them and find out so that they can still raise the dollars if they need.
Yeah, thank you. Brian, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would sort of echo that and just broaden it. There's a lot of concern amongst the fundraising department at Jewish Federation and even through Jewish Federations of North America and federations across the country at the balance between raising funds for this COVID-19 emergency fund that many people are versus doing our sort of day-to-day general fundraising and the balance and the sacrifice that one may have over the other. And what our campaign looks like at the end of the fiscal year is something very much on the forefront of many fundraisers that I know.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. I think I'm going to shift over now to if anybody has a question. I see there's one question in the chat box. And if you do have another question, just write it in the chat box. And somebody's asking, Melody, what's your service area? I was speaking with a small organization in Pottstown, Montgomery County that serves Spanish-speaking population and was trying to help with some SNAP applications, but has limited capacity. And it looks like Stu could answer that one, yeah.
Yeah, I know that CADCOM, and I know Luis, who I think leads the SNAP effort at CADCOM, is Spanish speaking, and I think he's a great resource. So it's CADCOM. They're out of Norristown. I'm sure if you check them, that would be a good resource, and they serve all of Montgomery County, including Pottstown.
Great. And here's a question, I think. We have a grant partner that runs a farm and is looking for opportunities to get funded to help disperse their produce to other organizations. Does anyone have recommendations about who to connect with? They were mentioning and having funders fund their usual grant partners, but having the organizations earmark it to support the buying of produce. And Stu, you sounded ready to answer that.
Yeah, well, to the extent they're looking for help using the produce. So the NA Hunger Network is a great resource. So we'd be happy to help out with that. I'm not sure if that was what the focus of the question.
Yeah. Yeah, there are places that do gleaning, and some nonprofits that are doing gleaning. Rolling Harvest does that, and
That's right.
and I guess some pantries would probably, if they had the cash, be able to purchase some of the produce as well.
Sure. I mean, we would, I'm sure there's a number of pantries that if the produce was made available, would be very happy to buy it.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to run into like a little breakout session. And I have a question for all of you. And I'm going to actually see if I could copy it and paste it. And Shira's going to put us in breakout sessions for about 6 or 7 minutes. And we're probably going to have, how many people we have on this call? 28. So let's have like 6 breakout sessions, Shira, and she's going to swoop us away into the Netherlands. And I'd like you to answer this question, which I'm now going to type into the box, and that is, as funders, what are ways to support local food relief organizations as they assist our community members during this time? And we want to think, we've had discussions pre this call, ways to reduce barriers, make it just easier for some of the nonprofits who are really working on the front line at this point. So Shira, you ready to swoop us off into a different place? Okay, so we'll bring you back in about 6 minutes or so. And then I know there are some of you, we'll talk about some of these ideas. Oh, while you're having this discussion, we're going to go old school here. We tried to do something very virtual, but it doesn't work. So somebody just take notes, and you can, when you come back from your breakout room, start typing your answers in the chat box so that everybody could see some of these ideas. So I'm going to swoop you off. You're going to have this discussion. You're going to come back. You're going to write your answers in the chat box, and we'll have a chance to look at those. After that, well, there's a couple of you I know who wanted to make some announcements about some projects that they're trying to get funded, or just some areas that they're trying to concern, that they want to share. Let's take it away. There we go. And all of a sudden, I was in a room, and I got swooped out of that room into a different room. So, great. How was that, everybody? Okay, so go into your chat and write down some of the ideas that you heard, and we'll keep this chat, and we'll read through some of these ideas. I could tell you that I'll just report out what I heard in mine was, which was an innovative idea for me, of course, is just helping some of these smaller nonprofits that don't know how to fill out grant applications. So some of you have some capacity within your organizations to help some of these nonprofits loan applications the federal government's putting out, and some of these and other loan applications. So just write down some of these things in your and maybe just I'll give you a minute to do that. It's weird, my thing was off. Okay. Shira, are you open to reading some of the answers we've heard in the chat today?
Absolutely.
Thank you, please.
All right, so I think I'm getting to the top of them. So helping find new space for store product. We discussed changing program-related grants over to general operating grants. On similar lines, making unrestricted grants with minimal reporting requirements to reduce barriers. General application funding, especially that some are losing other fundraising opportunities. Second, Brian's request for needed space. Easy application for funding. Your part-time controller recently did a webinar on applying for small business loans. Perhaps a recording of the training could be made available. Convening providers. Flexible funding to allow agencies to problem solve. For example, hire back old employees who know the agency but may be out of work. Provide employee hazard pay. With social distance requirements, some pantries don't have space to accept food donations. With the local YMCAs all closed, we have paired a Y in a cupboard so that Y is mobilizing members to drop off food at the Y, where it can be sanitized, stored, and packaged and to be distributed by the cupboard. Increasing FTEs for volunteer coordinators. The application for most of the relief funds are pretty simple and not as involved as most grant applications. And a question from Wes, does the food storage space need to be refrigerated or just large spaces? Perhaps schools, gyms, rec centers could be repurposed.
Somebody want to answer that question for Wes, please? Both. We got it. All right. And Brian brought his daughter to the meeting. Okay, terrific. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to allow time for folks to make any announcements. I think Susan Sherman, if you're still on the line, is she on with us today? She wanted to make talk about a program that she was concerned about. You're on mute too.
Perhaps by phone, but I know Jen is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to talk to the work that they're doing at Broad Street Ministry.
Okay. Jen, are we putting you on the spot here?
No. I thought maybe that Susan was on and I was going to let her talk about it.
Okay. Just
unmuted.
announce yourself and tell us who you are, please.
Jennifer, we can do this together. This is Susan Sherman with the Independence Foundation and Jennifer Bonenberger with the Independence Foundation. We have been working for the past 2 weeks to put together a coalition of funders and caterers, actually, to provide meals for the homeless on the streets. So we started with Broad Street Ministry, expanded to Project Home, and now are going to be, as of Monday, expanding to Prevention Point. Broad Street went from feeding 150 to 200 people a day for lunch to 550 as of last Thursday, and we expect that number to keep increasing. Working closely with those 3 agencies and the city, they will be moving all the feeding programs from Project Home and from Broad Street to the City Hall Apron Plaza. As of now, the city is providing pickup, garbage trucks, fencing, police protection, things that would cost us money, cost the project money, but the city is throwing all that in. The city's 100% on board on this. To date, as of a half an hour ago, we have raised $525,000. It costs about $15,000 a week to feed this population. That money will last us for probably 10 weeks. If the situation going to raise money for this fund. The fund is going to be administered through the Broad Street Ministries. And we have, the Independence Foundation has put an admin there for them to do this and lined up an accountant to just check the books on a monthly basis and put together statements that can be sent out to all the funders. I can confirm with you that the funders currently are Janet and David Haas Foundation, the William Penn Foundation. Janet and David did 100,000. William Penn did 75,000. Philadelphia Health Network, Anne-Marie Healy's foundation is doing 50. We did 150. Neubauer, between the family and the foundation, are doing 100. Conley is doing 100. They think there might be some celebrity in the future that will also be available to kick this off with additional funding, but I'm not at liberty to say that. We don't think that 1,000 meals a day is nearly ample enough, but it will be 2 meals for 1,000 people a day to start this. Oh, and by the way, the city is providing porta potties as well. And the Mural Arts is providing those blocks so that when people line up for food, they can be 6 feet apart. John, you want to add anything right this minute?
Just that the two meals, these are box meals that are going to be given out. One of the reasons that the caterers are involved is that they already have this kind of capacity of good practices with food. With working with food, that they're already set up to do those type of things. The other thing that with the police protection is the police are going to be kind of enforcing the social distancing in a good way, but just to make sure, because usually when these things open up, people start to kind of rush to congregate, and they're going to, besides having the mural arts to reinforce that, the police are also going to, as part of their presence, to reinforce that as well.
Terrific. So if you want more information, please speak to Jen or Susan, and I'm sure they'll be happy to have a conversation with you about it. I just want to thank our speakers today, and also thank our planning group who worked. We have had a number of calls, Daphne Rowe and Rachel Costello with Pembroke Philanthropy Advisors and the Leo and Peggy Pierce Family Foundation, Hannah Lipo and Brian Kralnick for Center for Social Responsibility at Jewish Federation, Shira Hodges, and me. And if you'd like to be involved with this, please let us know. We'd love to have you involved. Shira is sharing the poll results, and it looks like most people are funding food. And Shira, maybe when you stop sharing this, we could do a second poll if you want. And if you remember how to do it. All right, very good. So, as a result of the information provided today, what is the likelihood of your organization funding food relief efforts during this crisis? And we're getting the responses in right now. And while we're doing this, I want to thank everybody for participating today. I want to thank Stu and Melody and Brian for sharing some of the things that they've learned and are seeing in the field. Shira, of course, for facilitating. Kathy in the background, I know you're facilitating the technical piece as well. If there are other questions, please type them in the chat box, and we'll be happy to ask our speakers today. Shira, could you talk to us about how these notes will be shared? And
absolutely. So after this call, we are going to upload the video from the call to the event page where you went to register so that you can access it again. And then I'll also send out, for those who signed up to participate for this call, I'll send out details about where to find that link, as well as all the information that was provided in the chat box. I'll just kind of quickly summarize it so you have it for your notes as well. And you can obviously go back to the recording. And also don't forget to join us tomorrow for our weekly COVID-19 funder call that happens starting this week at 10:15.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody. Hope you have good holidays this week, and stay safe and stay well.